We're live. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning, Joey. How are you?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
My weekend was magical. It was really fun. I went to my first golf tournament and volunteered and worked that, so that was fun.
Nice. I saw those pictures. Now, you said it's your first golf tournament. Is that through your school?
Yes. You guys, I'm going to apologize right out the gate right now because I kept my 4-year-old home today so that he didn't have to go and watch the Eclipse at our babysitter. Not that I don't trust her. I trust that girl with my life. But my husband was getting a little nervous, and so I was like, no, I'll just keep him home with me. It'll be totally fine. Worst idea ever. Worst idea ever. I spent the last hour with my client talking more to my 4-year-old than I'm sure I talked to her. And so now I went to the Red Box. I got him 2 new movies in the van. And so I'm going to pray that that's going to buy me a little bit of time. But there's a really good chance you'll hear me clapping and snapping my fingers and going, William, William, throughout this entire podcast.
Everybody say, hi, William.
God bless America. Kids, let me tell you.
I love it. So, Kate, we've got a lot to talk about today, I feel like.
I know, I'm excited.
So if anybody is confused, we were going to have Megan Maydell on. We're going to reschedule because she was going to be at a pretty loud space this morning. And Kate, I'm so excited for you and her to talk because I think that she's somebody who understands where you're coming from when you knock funnels, but she knows how to do them really well. And so I think it'll allow for a really good discussion. I'm excited to have her on.
No, I think that's super fun. Megan and I, she was one of my first, non-local to my, local market Facebook friends. So I actually knew Megan probably, way longer via the Facebook world than I even knew you or Danny or anybody
interesting.
else. So I love that. We've been Facebook friends for a long time.
Yeah, she's really, really good. She really knows her stuff. But she'll probably be on in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited to bring her on. Kate, one of the things that I really want to talk with you about this morning is this idea of entrepreneurship. Because you and I have talked about this before. A lot of people right now are throwing out the word entrepreneur, and we're seeing a lot of people have identity problems with it. They don't think that other people should call themselves entrepreneurs.
Well, it's such an interesting thing. I mean, how fucking judgmental can you really be? It's not your job to decide what other people call themselves. It's just not your place. You have no right. I don't know. That bothers me all in itself. Yep. I don't identify with being an entrepreneur for a variety of reasons. One of them being, let's be honest, right? We all have these head games that we play with ourselves. And I remember I met with a girl a couple years ago, and she had vice president on her website. And I was like, oh, so you're not the owner of your company? She was like, no, I'm the owner. I go, so you didn't start it? No, I started it. Well, why does your title say vice president? Oh, because until I hit a certain revenue goal, I'm not going to consider myself the president of my company. And I was like, that's so interesting. Why? Why do you do that? And so I always naturally say founder, or I don't really say CEO because I don't have a big corporate background.
Yep.
And so I think entrepreneur is one of two things. It's a little bit of a rebellion, right? I'm not owner or CEO. I'm, an entrepreneur, right? But I don't know. Is entrepreneur really an adjective or a verb, right? How does that fall? And then I think it's interesting to I just don't find that it's our job to tell other people what they are and what they aren't. Yep. And as long as you're solution driven in your mindset, to me, I'd rather you be considered solution driven than anything else. And I want you to be solution driven everywhere, in your corporate job, in your home life, in your marriage, in your relationship with your kids, whatever it is. Always be looking for that next solution and how can you handle something better and differently than you did before, which is truly, to me, what entrepreneurship actually is.
And that's really interesting because I think a lot of people, whether they call themselves entrepreneurs or a lot of people in this hustle game right now, it's more about here's a cool idea versus here's a solution to a problem.
Right. Well, and I mean, sorry, can you guys hear me over this thing? I'm trying to get the video off.
Yeah, I think they can. I know I can.
Sorry, I was trying to get that off of there. I was trying to read comments, but apparently I can't watch and turn it off. I don't know what I did wrong.
So Misty has said it's not our place to put labels on other people. Only I can give myself a label. And Missy said it's a
Right.
pet peeve of hers as well.
Well, it's like we live in a society right now where everybody and their mom is out to like tell everybody else who they are. And like,
Yep.
it's just that's your job. And it's not your place. And knowing your place and knowing, you know, what is and what isn't your place is actually really important in our society right now because in my opinion, 90% of the problems that we have in our country right now are based off of fear. So it's not about the discovery of a solution or identifying, like even making a relationship or building community. It's about just acting from fear and reacting versus engaging, right? And connecting. And so even when we start to like throw around these, like saying that someone is not is negating them and their value that they bring to the table. And it's just not your place to negate them because you may or may not like the way that they identify with themselves. But that goes across all levels of things. Like it's not just entrepreneurship, right?
Yep.
And it's really interesting. I don't know. And I find like when people are like, oh, so-and-so's not an entrepreneur, like that's, I mean, there's a difference, right? Like we talk about seed businesses and we talk about sprout businesses, right? And sprouts are if you're an MLM, you buy into somebody else's branding company for $99 and you start selling for them. And there's a mentality right now that if you go to like get a job, and people say to me all the time, they're like, oh, I took on a partnership position with XYZ company and they're gonna help me become an entrepreneur in this business. Okay, that's not like don't say that. That's not a real sentence. Like that doesn't work that way, right? And so when we talk about MLM, you know, then it is a different ballgame. It is a sales rep position. You are selling to a company. If they close, you're screwed. It just is what it is. Yeah. Whereas when you're a seed business, right, you own every piece of it. You started it from nothing, and you control whether or not it goes up or it goes down, right? So
yep.
I do think that there is a difference in that, and I get where people that are seed businesses get super pissed when sales reps and MLMs and people that work for corporations say, I'm an entrepreneur. Because they're like, no, you're not. No, you have no control over your life. Like none, you know?
Right.
And so I get where people come from in that space, but still, it's just not worth the energy. It just creates toxic reactions and toxic ways that people engage with you. Like people look at you like a shitty person when you're out labeling other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my only response to it all, like for me, is that as a business owner who could advertise myself as a lawyer for entrepreneurs, I've found that my target market tends to not describe themselves as entrepreneurs.
Right.
And I think knowing that type of thinking about it that way is helpful in your business. If you're a business to business type of service or product, it's helpful to think about this terminology in terms of what's going to resonate with your target market.
And it all goes back to the identity of your target market. Again, where if people don't know their target market, they're the blind leading the blind, right? And so it's really difficult to make decisions in your business, buy product, get rid of product, keep, what services you're going to offer if you don't know your market, and even how you're going to identify yourself as a business. How you are going to engage with people if you don't have that target market. I'm amazed all the time at how many people are like, yeah, my target market is women with children. Like, not actually, I mean, that's like a label on people, but I don't even know what that is,
Yeah, well, and I heard somebody say this the other day, and it made so much sense to me. Like, we were at like a networking event, and someone said, like, well, what do you do? Like, who can I refer you to? And she said, oh, like, my customer's everyone. Like, I'm in real estate, and everybody needs to buy houses. And then they, like, laughed. And the other person was like, well, no, seriously, like, tell me a little bit more about who it is that you tend to work with, because otherwise I don't know who to connect you with.
Right.
And people sometimes don't see that part of it, to where, like, if you have a clearly defined target market, then when you do networking, when you do build collaboration with other business owners, it gives them a better sense of the right type of work to send your way.
Right. Well, and people, if you say I work with everyone with skin, okay, that means nothing to me. And I'm going to forget that detail instantly. Yep. But if you say I work with women 52 years old that are recently divorced, all three of their kids are off to college, they're artists, they have, typically have blonde hair, they live in major metropolitan cities, whatever, like that, like people then can start to identify people in their lives, and it almost like pulls people in their brain out of the crowd of everyone they know, and they're like, oh, I know someone for you. Boom. And then you're not working as hard because the referral that you asked for is super specific, And although you might not always get it, and people might not always send it to you, when they do, they're going to send you a direct buyer. And that buyer is not only going to buy well, but she's going to buy it all, or he's going to buy it all, and they're going to buy everything that you sell because they have the exact same points. They are your ideal buyer. Just like move them right on in. So if you guys don't know your ideal buyer, pop a 1 in the comments so that we can, help you guys out and individually interact with you in that space. The other thing about knowing your ideal buyer is it also allows you to trademark and to do the legal pieces of your business that really make sense for you and your company. Also to identify between what is a brand and what is a product. Am I actually trademarking this product or am I trademarking a brand? You know? And working with a lawyer that even gives real value. I had a meeting, I don't know if she's listening or not, but I had a meeting with a woman a couple weeks ago and just joined B3 Core, and we were talking about the way that she runs her company, and she was in this, a little bit off topic, but she had this contract drawn up where she does her part, the other 2 girls do their part, and she has to give 60% of everything she sells away to the other 2 partners. And so she's the only one selling. So it's the way it worked. It was she was supposed to give 40% to the other girl that was out working as hard as she was, and 20% to the part-time girl. And then they were each doing that. Well, the other 2 girls weren't selling, and she was the only one selling. And I'm like, what lawyer drafted this up for you? He should be slapped.
Yep.
Oh, it made me crazy. But having that good lawyer in your court really helps that space out when you do know your market and you're identifying what you need to put your brand in place.
Yeah, no, definitely. Understanding when you have a good brand there's definitely the strategy behind knowing your target market, and then you have to think about the legal side in terms of now that you've solidified these things that you're thinking about, let's make sure that we have protections in place for them. Kate, I want to, before I get into it, I want the next thing that we talk about to be this energy and body language discussion that we had recently about sales. Before we get into it, I think this is going to be a really interesting topic. And so if you're listening and you are maybe in other groups, I want to talk about this. So let's share it if you think that this will be an important topic for you think other people in your Facebook communities to talk about. But Kate, I know that you have a really good take on how your own body language can help when it comes to closing sales.
Yeah, your own body language is huge. The body language of your buyer is even more. I feel like it's a double-edged sword, in regards to which side is more important. But, body language is hard because there are a lot of people that have these online shops, so they don't necessarily get to see body language. But what you get to see is buyer behavior language. And buyer language is similar to body language, only you're not actually physically seeing it. And so what we're able to do with buyer behavior language is we're able to identify out patterns within certain types of buyers and the way they interact and engage with your brand. And so I've been meeting with a lot of these girls that I've got a lot of clients right now that they went viral, right? So they started a business, maybe made 1 or 2 things, and all of a sudden, boom, it went viral. And they are now down a significant percentage and are trying to figure out how to rebuild, restructure, re-strategize their businesses. And so, which is super fun for me because then I get to go in and teach A, they're coachable and excited, and B, they're really driven to learn the foundations of what it is that they're doing. And so, when we talk about that, the first thing that we're doing is we're looking at what sells, how much of it sells, and what's the cost to profit ratio is our outright space. And then we're able to start saying okay, this mug sells 7 to 10 times more than this other mug, right? And then we're able to go in and look at those buyers and say, okay, well, it was purchased by this or purchased by that, which is why we need to get people off of third-party platforms, because third-party platforms don't allow you to get the data that you need to build your business. And business is really data-driven. It just is what it is. And so, we want to really think about in-person sales. If I can't get someone to put their hands or arms across the table I am pretty confident that they're not going to buy no matter what I do or what I offer. I am like pretty sold on that. If I can't get them their body to cross the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about your own body language, the way that you engage with someone who's selling to you, if you start to take notes on things that you do or don't do, it will tell you a lot about even your own buyers that you engage with. Is that close to what you're saying?
Yeah. Do you have an example, Kate?
In regards to what it looks like in person?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I said, well, there's a couple of things. One, if you allow yourself to dominate the sale with, let me say this. I always want my people to learn how to sell in a way that allows you to lead the conversation, to lead the buyer through their pain points and how you show them that you are a solution to what they need, right? Mm-hmm. But in doing that, I've had meetings where I've like sat in them and about 15 minutes into the meeting, I know that that person is never going to buy from me because I've allowed them to run the conversation. So they're the one asking me all the questions.
Right.
And I'm not answering. I'm only answering. I don't even get to ask them anything, right? So that's one way that I know that the sale is like going to go out the door. The other way is if I can't, like, if the buyer is too far away from the table, right? So they're like scooted back. So like I had a meeting with a guy a couple of years ago, and he was like, he sat a good chunk of back from the table with his legs crossed, with his elbows and arms up, with his arms crossed, and he was like so disengaged, but he kept asking me questions. So I didn't have time to own that sale.
Yeah. It's a really interesting space, like you said, where like you have to go into those conversations knowing that you have to maintain the conversation and that you have, like you said, own it.
And you have to set yourself up in ways that you leave room to have follow-up. So you have to say to them, like, I'm going to follow up with you in 2 to 3 days. I'm going to follow up with you on Monday, right? Or, so that you're always leaving room for the next conversation.
Right.
I know, can I just tell you that let me just tell you real quick. So let me interrupt my own self. I live in South County, which is in St. Louis, and somehow I am driving, I'm just driving around, killing time while we talk, whatnot. And I turned into Jefferson Barracks, quiet. Turned into Jefferson Barracks Park today, not even thinking about the eclipse, because I drive through here all the time. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, the amount of people in this freaking park, it is ridiculous.
Really? I know that park, and I've never seen it full.
Today will be the day, sir. I can't even figure out how to get out of the park. It's insane. So sorry to cut my own self off.
No.
I can't get out. I'm crap.
Well, I titled this podcast Solar Eclipse, partly because I want to talk with you about it, but also because I think that in a lot of ways it's a really good kind of metaphor for, I think, what both of us are trying to do, which is have like businesses that are aligned in a perfect way with certain values and in certain ways that we want to run the business.
Right. Well, and the eclipse is so interesting because it is a true energy shift, right? Like all these people are talking about how if it happens, it's going to turn over, it gives you like a reset, and all of these things. And I don't know. I think the eclipse is really interesting.
Yep.
My mom was devastated that there was a possible chance that it would be cloudy.
Kate, we're losing you. You said that there was a chance that your mom said there was a chance of what?
And she was like such a mess about it. And thankfully, can you hear me now?
Oh, you're going in and out, but yeah, I think it's better.
Hello?
Yep.
All right, well, I'm going to park up here.
Okay.
My mom is like so excited about the eclipse, like just ecstatic.
Really? Well, we'll wait until Kat gets back. My mom is excited, but very, very concerned. My mom's always the safe one. I'm one of 7 kids.
Excited. Watch videos talking about it.
Kate, you're still breaking up. So while we wait for Kate to get back, I'll just share with everybody that my mom is kind of scared that all of her 7 kids are going to have awful eyes because none of us have our glasses, which we don't, which is true. But I'm going to be inside today, so I don't even think I'm going to see it. I know I've talked to a lot of people who have said I'm scared to watch it, and so I plan on just watching it on the TV.
Yeah, I keep hearing that too. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I seriously just drove through this space and there was like zero problem. And now that I'm driving back through it, it's like a whole nother issue. I'm like cutting out. So weird.
Weird. We're all good now.
Great. Well, I'm at the top of the hill again, so maybe that helps. I don't know. The Eclipse, it's already messing with cell phone service.
Right?
I mean, there are people already camped out at JB Park, like sitting under trees. Like already, and after 12:45, you won't even be able to get into Jefferson Barracks Park.
Wow.
I think like Sylvan Springs Park or something. I don't know what this is actually called, but we call it Jefferson Barracks Park. I don't know if that's right or not, but yeah, it's crazy. And you know, I think the cool thing about the Eclipse is that lots of people will miss it, you know, because it's not a priority. Like I keep seeing people on Facebook. I either see one of two statuses, like A, where can I get more glasses, or B, why am I not excited? You know, and I think that those are the two stages of it, right? And I think some of the lack of excitement is just truly not having any concept of what it's like to experience an eclipse. You know what I'm saying? In this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely nothing that I've ever experience like, and as soon as like I started like hearing about it happening in the news, I was like, man, like this is really cool. I don't know why people didn't make a big deal about this like last year, that this would happen in 2017, or maybe they didn't. I just didn't hear about it.
I think that people were. I mean, hotels were booking up. People have been running their houses out on vrbo.com for $1,000 a night.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, people are coming in from all over. A friend of mine just came in from Ohio over the weekend. You know, so I think that there's been a lot of buzz. I think because we lived in St. Louis, it was easier to like pull the mask over our eyes and just pretend like we weren't engaging with it. Yeah. Where everyone around the country was probably talking about it the whole time. You know? But I think like that in itself is super. I think it's, again, it goes into like buyer behavior, right? Like people want to be a part of an experience. And they want this experience. They want to be able to check this experience off their list if they're an experience-driven person. If you're not an experience-driven person, then it might not have any impact in your life as to whether or not you're involved in it or not.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and there was a similar thing that happened in Chicago over the weekend. We had our big air and boat show. So it was like all those planes that flew in formation, like in the city on the lake. And right. Kat and I made it Saturday morning to see it, and it was awesome. But in the same way that you said that people were either talking about how excited they were or that they didn't care, in Chicago the census was like either you loved the fact that it was happening and it was very, very cool to watch, or you were complaining about how loud the planes were from your house.
Right. And annoyed at how many people were in town, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the same way.
There's definitely a choice there with how you react to events happening.
Right. And then that goes into like how our buyers react, and even then using that as like thinking about that in regards to your buyer. Like, is your buyer someone who needs an impactful moment, or are they not? My buyers need a before and after. They need that impactful space. They need to see a return on their investment in working with me. Whereas your buyers are probably, I mean, in some way they might like that experience, but they're not looking for this big aha moment that's necessarily going to change their life. However, I do have a client that I'm sending your way because I thought this was really interesting. Last week, I guess someone had approached her and said, my child is really interested and in love with your product, and he would really like to sell it. Like, he would like, I want to teach him about business and all this stuff, and we figure word of mouth and vendor events, whatnot, and we think this would be a great opportunity for him to get involved. And she called me and we talked about it. And at first I thought she said he was 17. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, you know, she's going to have to get the LLC because he's too young and all this stuff. And then she let me know that the kid was 7. He was only 7 years old. And I was like, wait a minute. Whoa, no. You know, and so then I put like this whole kibosh on it. I'm like, no. and here's why. And we got into like, now you have to trademark because you have people that want to do events under your brand and under your product, and they want to sell your product. And then it opened up the whole conversation of the flip side of that of like, hey, yes, now you need this trademark. But the other side of it of how many people jump on your coattails when they think that you're being successful, and how not to allow that to get you screwed over.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, I see that happen with a lot of people where they, as soon as, I mean, they're being told that they're doing it wrong for so long, and then as soon as they start seeing results, people start trying to jump on board, and it can get really toxic, and it can get very like, do me a favor, I'll do you a favor type thing.
Right. Well, and it falls into like, oh, I have the best intentions. I just want to see your business grow. I believe in you. All of this shit to, hey, I did that for you. When are you going to, what's happening with that? And now suddenly they have like this overall monetary investment in what you're doing, and there is no free money, so it like totally blurs all of these lines. And I think that people have been coming at me for a couple of weeks now and be like, oh my God, she's killing it. Like she's just, oh my gosh, I can't believe how well they're doing and all this stuff. And yeah, she is doing well, but she's doing better than she was 8 weeks ago, but she's not killing it. Like her husband's not quitting his job, so like, It's interesting to see how people's perceptions of what killing it really is. And
oh my gosh,
how quickly people will jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, especially in traditional like creative small business spaces where being a success, there are so many people struggling that if they hear of like a quote unquote entrepreneur making $10K a month for the business, they're like, oh my gosh, how did they do it? And like that is a huge feat. Like that is those are impressive numbers, but like you said, that's not going to allow a spouse to quit their job.
Well, it's not even typically sustainable revenue.
Right.
Like that person, depending on their business, product, or service, they're still probably only bringing in their take home might be $2,000, if that.
Right.
And so really like communicating with people that it's not always the what they're bringing in a month. I mean, I've had companies that I brought in $16,000 a month, and my take home was still like $4,000 or $5,000.
Yep.
And it just didn't mean enough in the big scheme of life of what that really looks like.
Yeah. No, but you're right. It can be really dangerous to try and compare how you're doing with someone who you think is more successful than you. And Kate, we've talked about that before. There are some examples of people online who look like they're doing better than they are. Misty comes in saying 10K revenue is not a profit. You have to know where the sunk expenses are. Kate, let's talk about this before we head out. You sent me a few notes, and I wanted to get to a couple before we wrap up here. Let's talk about, you said like when expenses are paid and now what?
I said what?
You said like the idea of like when you're like the business's expenses are paid, now what? Like
right.
if you're at a place in your business where you're no longer just struggling to stay afloat.
Right. What does that look like?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people, I think, in our combined groups who are in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good world. I always tell people, like, when you become a solopreneur or a business owner, you are trading one necessary evil for the other, right? Because when you own a business, you're pretty much always chasing that next sale, because that next sale is what's going to keep you sustainable, right? And then once you start getting to a place where you feel more comfortable, you get scared that should I be this comfortable? Like you're always like waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right.
And you almost are a little bit like of a pessimist. Like I think that people often think that business owners are optimists, but I really think majority of us are pessimists because we're always waiting for the next trigger that's going to trigger the landslide of trouble,
Yep.
And so it's a little bit of hot mess all in that zone. But, I think when you get to that thriving space where things are evening out, you're paying your bills, you're paying your business bills, and you're able to still have money in the bank. It's not always normally a lot of money in the bank, but it's still there. You're like, oh, look at it. There it is. I think the first base is paying yourself, even if you don't make that much money that month or whatever, always paying yourself regardless. People all the time are like, oh, I've owned this business for 18 months. I've only paid myself once. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yep.
That just increases your burnout rate.
You have to remember why you're doing, who you're doing business for in general and why the business even exists.
Right. And where you want that to go.
Yep.
And not losing track of your mission, which I think is why are you doing this? Where are you wanting it to build out to? I posted something on the business page yesterday that if all of your expenses were paid, and you and I talked about this last week, but if all of your expenses are paid, what does your life look like? If you wake up tomorrow and everything is taken care of, what do you do? And I thought it was really interesting. There is no wrong answer, guys. So if you answered that on BBass and Brilliant on Facebook, and now you're like, what? She's talking about me. I thought it was so interesting how short-sighted, in my opinion, the responses were. It was like, I would go and buy all of these things, or I would, I would accomplish what I consider 3 to 6 month goals. I would do these things in 3 to 6 months. And when I asked it, what I was really thinking about is what is your big picture? And I said go bigger. And it was I would relocate to Florida. Go bigger than that. What's the next step? I have this whole envision of when I hit all of these other little goals, right? Fencing in my backyard is on my goal list too. But that's a 3-month goal, right? And then when I hit those, then I have this big picture. I want to open up a community for low income single mamas and create childcare and a community garden and business skills and self-development skills. And I wanted to have this art therapy space and be this all encompassing family-like environment that really builds women up where they don't have to live with us forever, but if they want to, great. If not, go out there and, get your own house or whatever it is that you want.
Yeah.
And really creating that next space. So I don't think that if you wake up tomorrow and all of your expenses are paid, that you have to make sure that you're doing something that's community driven. I just thought it was really interesting in the responses that people had. And you and I have talked about it too, but.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, and mine is still when you asked me that, I realized too that some of my immediate responses to that question are more short-sighted than I would like. And I think it's interesting how, as hard as it is, we're told a lot to build 5-10 year plans for our business, and we tend to not do that for ourselves at a personal level.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I want to start that similar conversation in my group, because I think that's like we talked about, with the whole Eclipse thing and alignment, that is a conversation that people should be having as solo business owners, is why am I doing this? Not just what are the values of the business, but what is this letting me do? What is the main end goal that I kind of see for myself that this allows me to do?
Right. And where am I going to take this?
Mm-hmm.
If I have a headquarters on the beach and I have a headquarters, here and whatever, I have business goals, but I also have I would love to open up centers for women to develop sales skills, business development centers that are not SBA centers, that are not, it's not, you're not running with necessarily in my opinion, outdated people. Granted, they were very successful, but pretty outdated. You're running with people that are really hitting it hard right now, and kind of changing what that mentorship world looks like in regards to the development of others. But everybody, and how can you incorporate that into your business? Instead of always hiring family to make your mondo bands, right? William Hush. Then you're hiring, I know, it's automatic response when you're a mom. You tune your kids out and you automatically tell them to be quiet on a regular basis.
There's something innate about motherhood. My wife, Kat, we don't have any kids, but we do have a dog, and I've been very surprised by how quickly she has become a snapper. Like whenever Feeney is doing something wrong or is being
Yeah.
loud during like a work call, she always snaps. And I have never seen her do that before. And so at first I thought she was getting mad at me for doing something. And it was just the dog. But yeah, it's really interesting how that type of auto response just kind of comes out of moms, even if you're
Right?
a dog mom.
Well, and you have this really awesome ability to tune everything out around you
I
all the
do.
time. So
I do.
I just tune it out, like everything. And Drew will be like, my husband will be like, they're talking to you. And I'm like, where? When? What? He's like, the children. I'm like, oh, what? And he's like, for 10 minutes, they've been screaming, Mom, and you're not responding. I was
I
like, dude,
love
I was
it.
like somewhere else. I was not listening.
That's
I
so
love that.
funny.
So I guess our challenge to you guys that are listening is to really be thinking about not only your business goals, but like what are your soul fulfilling goals that are going to fulfill your soul when you hit all of your business goals. Then what are you going to do? Because I kind of feel like that in my own life. Like I hit a lot of my goals that I wanted in Nexus, and then I kind of sat down and was like, what do I really want to do? And I was like, I want to change the way that people do business. Like I want to teach them the foundations and the skill sets, and that's what I'm already doing, and I love doing that. How do I like kick that shit up a notch for people and for myself, and to fulfill my own passions? And I think that that's what I'm asking people is like, what are the things that are like truly going to fuel you? And although laying on the beach, for 9 months out of the year seems fulfilling, how long could you really actually
Yeah.
just lay on the beach?
That's like being excited for summer vacation and then it comes and you get bored within like a couple weeks.
Yeah, and you're like, and what are we doing now? Like, I'm
Yeah.
over
Well,
it.
and I love this because I feel like if you don't have that, then when you do meet your business goals, going back to what you said earlier, you just get hit with the next big thing. Like this has been a really good month for indie law. Like a really, really strong sales month. And I surpassed a goal that I've set for myself for a while now, and um, now that
Can
I've
I interrupt you?
well, I was going to say now that I've hit it though, it's without like a personal like achievement thing. My next thing is like, well, what happens if I lose it, or what's going to happen next month? And
Right.
so I think having this discussion is really important, so that whether you're struggling to hit your goals or you're hitting goals, you're keeping your mindset right. So it's not just, well, I hit this goal and now I feel like I have to hit the next one.
Right. Well, and let's dissect a little bit into your space on that too, where you went on vacation, you came back. In my opinion, you started kind of diving into, not that my way is the right way by any means or the only way. I'm not saying that, but you dove into some other like sales tactics and ideas that people had about sales.
Yep.
And how did your months from July to August compare? But also, like, what did you learn from, skirting off? I mean, we can jokingly call it, the old school way, but, when you diverted from that space and brought in, because so often, right, as business owners, we are like fucking 24/7 pushed with people's bullshit advice all the time.
Yep.
So how did that like interact? And I'm not saying their advice is bullshit, but it does happen a lot. So how did that interact with your space?
The main thing was that
I'm gonna take you to time and fix something out.
if you guys are listening and you've worked with Kate before, you understand that when Kate helps you coach, or when she helps you like in your sales and everything, she does it in a way where her big thing is like pricing to thrive and like having a thriving mindset. And I think a lot of sales experts or like marketing experts or anybody, when they try and sell you what they're doing, they first get you to feel bad in some way. And so more than any of like the tactics that I was learning from these other people, I felt after working with them for a while that part of it was I'm working on this because they are like afraid for me for some whatever reason, or at least like that's the way that they've tried to rope me in, and that has a rippling effect. And so it took
Right.
me a while to get away from that space and regain the confidence that I had before I went on vacation again.
Well, and I think like it's there are lots of sales development platforms out there and people teaching about one big boat. You know, you need sales before you market, you need sales before you brand, but so you really just need sales. And then all those other pieces fall together in the big team's life. You need a pain point, you need a solution, and you need to know how to deliver it to people and get them to engage with it, you know, monetarily. But one of the things that, you know, where I was like, Joey, and this happens all the time for business owners, like, I'll have people call me and they're like, well, I have a couple other coaches. I don't work with you if you have other coaches. I'm not interested in it. I don't know what they're telling you. I don't feel like correcting it. I don't feel like trying to tell you why I'm right and you're wrong or they're wrong. I don't want to deal with it. So I like to work with people that are really good listeners, but are also like action takers. So if I say do it this way, they do it that way. And there are lots of coaches. Sparks is really good about helping people identify the solution. I don't want to help you identify the solution. Do it the way I told you to do it. It will work. I promise you. If you do it some other bullshit ass way, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And that's on you, not on me. But
and Kate, you know that I'm action oriented to a fault.
You are. Yeah, one time I told Joey to follow up like white on rice, and which, you know, like I didn't mean it nearly as specific as he took it, and so that was a good learning lesson, right, for both of us.
Yes,
that was a good space. But what was one of the things they wanted you to get your buyer to say what? I can't remember what that was, but it was like a red flag for me. I need your.
They basically wanted me to get the person on the phone to say that they needed to buy from me versus me hearing their problem and saying, I've got a really good fit for you. I think this will be perfect. And so it was more like getting them to use language that you could then hold a mirror to versus owning the relationship and saying, I can help you, let's do this.
Well, and for me, like, that lacks major authenticity and major integrity because I'm not here to sell you something you don't need.
Yep.
If I don't think you're a good fit for me, I'm not going to follow up because one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to join my program and then you're going to quit and it's going to piss me off because once you come into my program, I am so invested in you. I think about you. I'm thinking of ideas and solutions. I'm in your Facebook group. I'm watching to see how you're interacting with your buyers. I'm screenshotting. I'm setting solutions. I'm correcting. Like, you are like in my space, and I could have 175 people like that, and you're still in my space. And so, you know, like, you want people to need you, but you don't want them to have to actually verbalize that they need you, because then what it does, in my opinion, it creates a lot of like what we have in society now is I don't want you to be too successful because you need me. I need you to be broken. The longer you're broken, the more you'll be my client, and I hate that shit.
Yeah, no, and then, I mean, Kate, you were one of like how can I say this? I mean, part of my law firm, the way that it operates is that we kind of provide a foundational layer of protection for the clients that we work for. And the hope really is that if they jump on a subscription plan, they don't have to renew that full package a year later because they already have the foundation done. And I think a lot of businesses would disagree with me on that and that I should have more of like a roping in aspect to it. But I know that, Kate, both you and my business have this sense of like, you don't need to have an ongoing dependency on us to thrive. Right.
And you shouldn't, right? I mean, the things that nourish your soul the most are the things that fulfill you, and then, you know, you go on. It's not necessarily this consistent space of always being, and you know what I think it also breaks down like this sense of that you're never going to be good enough. And because you're never going to be good enough, then you're always going to need me to hold your hand and pump you up. And people don't need that shit. We already get enough. You're not good enough from every other angle of our lives.
Yep.
What we need people to do is price their shit so that they have a profit. If you, as an artist, if you say, I would charge, $65 for this 10 by 10, double that. Make it $120 for a 10 by 10. Just do it. Because you're always going to undervalue what you bring to the table because you have 50 to 60,000 subconscious thoughts a day, and you're always going to underprice.
Yep.
I struggle with it too. Like even in B3 Core, I have to combat my own need to be like, oh, let me make it more affordable for more people. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I charge $125 an hour if you call me for a meeting. However, if you join B3 Core, you can get all of this extra shit for $99. I'm like, why am I doing it at $99? why would I do that, right? So we all
Yep.
sit in that space, and I'm constantly, I'm upping the price for B3 Core on a regular basis. It's going up all the time because it has to. It's not priced to thrive yet. It's getting there, but it's not there yet.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
but I think that's an important thing to especially if you're in a space like Kate's where you're creating something that in a lot of ways doesn't, like, you're not building something that competes with the current something out there. And so you do have to validate the demand first. And you're doing that a lot of people I think in your space would start with a completely free group and then sell down the road. And so I think that you're going about it the right way, where you're letting people
I have
who.
a paid group. I have a free group, but we never post anything in there.
Yep. Yep.
And it's not an active group, but our paid group is very active. What I love about the paid group, though, as you can see, I pulled you in there, is that it's super celebration of the highs and, commiserating the lows, but it's also that, like, hey, listen, it's low right now. It's going to get better,
Yeah. No, I've been really enjoying the space. And man, I really did love that conversation from last week about, assuming you guys hit all of your goals, what do you want to do? So
I think it's something a lot of people don't think about.
yeah.
And when we look at, like, how blessed, in my opinion, even despite all of the struggles that we have in our country right now, we are still so blessed in regards to struggles that we don't have that other countries are facing every day. I'm talking about, like, major landslides that are wiping out 600 people gone, And so although we do have our own struggles, don't get me wrong, we have a lot of really kick-ass shit in this country that doesn't exist anywhere else. And no matter what side or where you're at in your life, you still have the option and the opportunity to make your own shit happen if you know how to leverage your community and your target market, right? And
Yep.
you know how to build space out. And so, it opens up this mindset where you don't have to just think in the next 3 months. What the fuck does it look like in your life in 5 years? What does it look in 10 years, in 15 years? And then build that out for yourself, that this is where I'll be and here's what I'm going to do,
Yeah,
and
I love
pull
that.
into your brain space. It took me a little bit to get you to your real core of what your life might look like in that way.
Yeah,
I was
well,
very
I mean,
disappointed with your first answer. I was like, no, that's not it. Try again.
you're right. Well, and I think but I'm so glad you asked, because if I didn't, it's one of those things where you have to give a bad answer and then get pushed on it before you can really dig into it,
Right.
And I think a lot of people really don't spend any, like right now, without thinking in terms of like years, like the greatest thing would be like a weekend interrupted with my wife where we don't have anything else on the schedule and we can just hang out and not worry about cleaning because it's already clean, like because the place is already cleaned. Like that hasn't happened in a year.
You're a cleaning lady for that.
Right? Yeah, we're on it.
It's worth the investment.
We are totally on it. But I'm really excited, Kate. I know that you've got a super busy day, and enjoy the eclipse to everybody who's watching. What I plan on doing, keep a lookout, and Kate, I'll let you know when this happens too. But I want to start sharing snippets of these podcasts with just like the highlights of the conversations, because I think there's such good content in here. And thanks to like the 7 to 12 people who jumped on live. But there's always just little things in here that I feel like need to be emphasized. So I'm excited to get to work on promoting those in the future.
Right? I love it. All right, sir.
Sweet.
I'm going to go and buy my kid a special present for being such a rock star through this call, through this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, William.
And, right? He's got headphones on, man. He is zoned in. He's watching a Monster Trucks movie.
I love it.
I'll take a photo of him and post it.
Well, that's a wrap, you guys. I'll talk to you next week.
Catch you later.